I only do this once. Welcome to the San Francisco Drupal users group. This is our January meetup, January 2022. This meeting is being recorded. There are live captions. Everybody seen those? I did enable them, but I'm personally not seeing them. Now I'm seeing them. Okay. There are live captions. Participants will be muted during the main presentation. When unmuted, be mindful of background noise like mine right now. Virtual backgrounds are okay, but please don't use ones that have movement in them because we have members who are sensitive to that. Drupal news. Oops, I didn't have much for this. I've decided that I'm going to kind of dispense with kind of rehashing what's in the weekly drop every month. So I'm just going to call out the really big things, which is that Drupal 10 is being released next week on the 14th. I hope my husband's going to get the word. And if you want to see the latest news, do go to this URL. And if you're not already subscribing, I highly recommend it. You'll get a weekly email with all sorts of the latest news about Drupal and links to tutorials. And it's really great. Upcoming Drupal events. So we have the Drupal 10 release, like I said, on December 14th, and there's all sorts of events. If you go to this link here, there's all sorts of events, including yours truly, Bob Snodgrass's Fox Valley meetup is having a online party. So feel free to join in with those guys. And well, and they're also in person too. And we also have Florida Drupal Camp coming up in February. That's in person, and New Jersey in person. Nerd Summit's coming up. That's in Massachusetts, Amherst in person. And recently just announced MidCamp will be in April in person and online for Chicago. And then, of course, the big DrupalCon this summer in Pittsburgh. Call for speakers. The deadline for Florida Camp is December 18th, so that's coming right up. We are always looking for speakers, so please reach out to us. You can do that on the meetup chat, or you can find me on Drupal.org and Benoodle. The Nerd Summit is their deadline is January 15th. MidCamp, we just learned from Bob, is going to be next Wednesday. They'll open up the call for speakers, and we think the deadline is going to be January 25th for that. And New Jersey Camp, I'm not sure. I went to their website, doesn't look like they've opened it yet, but I would imagine any day now, probably. So if you're interested in speaking there, keep an eye on that space. And as I mentioned, we are always looking for speakers. We want people of all levels. You do not have to be an expert. We are open to other formats. We typically do have speakers with a slide deck and sometimes some demo, but you don't have to do that. If you have another idea, let us know, and we'll try to make that happen. You know what? I'm really sorry about this, but I have to get the door. I'm very, very sorry. One moment. Sorry about that. All right. Slide deck went on without me. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Everybody hear me? Yes. So Drupal jobs, there are postings on drupaljobs.org or jobs.drupal.org. The company I work for, Canopy, we are always looking for talent. We have quite a few openings right now for various roles. And Pantheon is also always looking for talent. This is where we usually just do a shout out if anyone here is looking to hire talent. If they'd like to speak up and mention their openings, they can do that here. Or if you're looking for work and want to make your services known, you may do that now. Anybody? All righty. We can always chat after the presentation too, if you want to. All right. So upcoming, what we're going to do in January, the next meetup will be January 12th, second Thursday in the month. And we're going to do an informal group discussion about the year in review. It'll be sort of a share and tell. We can do any format. I mean, people can present, short slide decks if they want, or live demo if they want, or short video if they want, or not. They can just come and chat and describe the things they've worked on or learned. And I put a few prompts here on the slide, just like, some cool things you learned or people you met or just anything you want to reflect on. And just thought it'd be interesting. We can show off sites we've worked on. I feel like we don't do that enough as Drupalists. Like, hey, we built some cool sites. let's look at them. So I think that'll be fun. And just a heads up that what I'm thinking for the coming year is to kind of mix it up more and perhaps kind of alternate monthly between doing like a formal presentation with a speaker and then doing something else on the alternate months. And we can talk in January about ideas for what those other alternate meetups are going to be like. And I think, that's going to help me because it is hard to find 12 speakers a year. That's a lot. People are busy and it's hard. Okay. Oh, actually, I'm already recording. So, anyway, today, thank you very much for our generous speakers for showing up all the way from France in the middle of the night. And we're going to learn tonight about D9 Localization Server Upgrade Initiative. And so we have Nicolas, Loye, and Marine Gandy, and they're going to speak to us about the efforts to upgrade the Drupal site that gives us all the wonderful translation that we kind of take for granted. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and allow you guys to share. Oops, that didn't seem to work. Hang on. Well, yes, let's share. Oh, you guys are on mute?
Yeah, just a little issue with the screen sharing right now. We're trying to fix it.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to have it on the other screen so I can see what's happening. So is it sharing properly? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yes, sorry, we have actually done a similar talk a few months ago in Prague. Like Nicolas and other members of the community have made this talk to the attendees at DrupalCon Europe. So this is the updated version. So we'll talk a bit about us, who we are as an initiative, but also us as speakers, what it is, localize, how does it work, and what's the point of what we're doing. Then Nicolas will talk to you about the current state of our effort and do a little demo. And then we'll see what's left to do, which is, as always, a lot. So about us, we are mainly members of the Drupal Association in Europe. Actually, I think that's only European people for now. We all have very close interests in having Drupal translated, obviously, because most of us work with multilingual websites and projects in general, and Europe is very multilingual, obviously. And it's not always comfortable. I think our friends from Germany might know that. The current tool is not the most friendly, I would say. So we really wanted to improve this experience for our translation work, because it's a lot of work. Every release of the Drupal core or any module that has a new version means new strings to translate. So it's never ending, right? So I am Marine, like Anne said. I'm the current president of the French Drupal Association, and I'm a DevRel engineer at Platform SH. And so, of course, I love cats. We talked about that. Also a metalhead and big fan of Batman comic books. And I will let Nicolas introduce himself.
Thank you. You need to mute yourself. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm the treasurer of the French Drupal Association. I'm an active member of the French translation team, not as active as some other member of the initiative, but I try to do my best on my side. I'm maintainer of various Drupal projects on the community. I'm also a metalhead, a role player, and I love cats also.
Okay, so the rest of the group is composed of European people, mostly French speakers, and I will explain to you why a little later. Most of us actually used the tool before, so translators, developers, but also UX designers. And all of us are very involved in our own local communities. So we're more active on the French or German or Belgian association than on the global Drupal association, I guess. But we also have some first-time contributors, which is always cool. So about Localize. So what is it? Because we realize that a lot of people don't know at all what we're talking about, and they maybe have never realized that there was such a big infrastructure behind these translation tools. So we do love this quote by Umberto Eco. So sorry, it's very Europe-centric, but I think it's a great summary of what it is that we do. So the language of Europe is translation, and that is, I think, very true for us. We realize that maybe in the US it's less of a subject. I mean, the topic is not as prevalent, maybe, but a lot of us do work on very big websites that actually need several languages because they do, for example, international e-commerce or so it's actually everybody needs to use these tools at some point. But maybe for us in Europe, we do use it more because we tend to have the Drupal admin in our native language, which is not English most of the time. So maybe we're more exposed to this. And another stat is that an average of 60% of users spend more time on sites in their own language. So what we saw that a lot of surveys show that, you know, between 40 and to 75%, depending on the survey, say that people will just not shop on a website that doesn't offer their own language, and they will spend more time on those websites. So it is a very important aspect of business. Drupal at its core is multilingual, so we do have the content translation. You can recognize on the right the little logo of the multilingual Drupal. And it's always possible to translate something in Drupal, so whether it's content or config, but also we can import PO files. We've been able to do that for a while. We can obviously wrap every type of custom text in T functions, even in JavaScript, actually, if you didn't know that. Please do use T for every piece of text. That's important. So it's very like built in by design. Everything in Drupal has the multilingual aspect included in it, embedded. so it's just, it makes sense to worry about what's happening with localization here, because we rely a lot on it. So what is actually happening is that localize.drupal.org is a translation server. It's currently built on Drupal 7, and now you get our problem, I guess. But it's also shared translation files, so that's a lot of strings to download every time you install Drupal with another language, or every time you sync your localized strings. And so it's actually a very, very powerful tool for the teams that translate Drupal, because it's very easy to collaborate with other people, suggest new strings, validate them. There are different roles giving you different permissions on it. So it's a very advanced translation server. Sorry. And it's not so easy to just move away from it or try to upgrade it. So maybe, yeah, you do have screenshots after that. Yeah, that's the one. So that's the current display of what's happening at localize.drupal.org. And it's a very critical part of our infrastructure that we need to take care of, because we cannot just stop it. It's been used every day, all the time. So it's called a lot, and there are a lot of teams working on it. So yeah, the two main aspects are people going there to translate Drupal core and Drupal modules, and the automated stuff that you don't see, just using Drupal and downloading translations automatically. I wanted to add something and I just lost it, so sorry. So yeah, currently it's the Drupal 7. Obviously, Drupal 7 is going to be end of life in November next year. And so we have to migrate it to Drupal 9. And that's only just a small piece of Drupal.org, but we can take care of that in isolation, migrate it, and then see for the rest of Drupal.org. But the ultimate goal, obviously, is to upgrade all of Drupal.org. So that's a feat in itself. There are issues that you can go and watch if you want to see all the comments and what was happening. So I think the first one we created, in Ghent, in Drupal Dev Days. And then when we came back, we created the second one to just organize stuff asynchronously. You want to add something? Yeah, okay.
So the first one, well, both of these issues were already created before the initiative was created. The first one is a meta issue for the D9 port of the world Drupal.org infrastructure, and the second one is mainly for localize itself. So we only grabbed the issue for our own work, but they were created before the initiative even existed.
Okay, my bad. There are so many issues now. I don't know which is which anymore. So how did it happen? First of all, like Nicolas just said, there were already existing issues about this topic. And one of our French speakers, because he's not French, he's from Catalonia, FMB, he's very active on the translation team in both French and Catalan, and he speaks a lot of languages. And he was pretty much poking at us we have a Slack for the French-speaking community, separate from the Drupal Slacks. And so he kept talking about this project of migrating localization, and it was hard to get things set up. But then a whole lot of French people met in Belgium for the Drupal Dev Days, and we ended up focusing on that, some of us, and we took advantage of the presence of Gabor to actually talk a little bit about this project with him and start actually coding. So this was his beautiful work explaining to us how Localize works, because Gabor and Neil Drum were the original masterminds behind Localization. So obviously Gabor did a lot of the code like 15 years ago, but he remembered it quite well actually, because we were pestering him with questions upon question and he was able to answer. So I was pretty amazed, I must tell you. And Neil obviously knows everything about Drupal infrastructure, which is, you know, we will have to work closely with him anyway, because we don't know how everything is intertwined. And by the time we need to push this live, obviously we have to do that with the minimal downtime as possible. So it will be a challenge. And so these guys are like heroes. We could not do that without them, honestly, because retro engineering the code would be very difficult. So that's the ticket I was thinking about. We created this initiative, the Core Idea Initiative, to help find people interested in joining us, and to make this a little more official, because who doesn't like the initiative glow, you know? And this logo that you see in blue was designed by Nicolas, so he made a great job. And then another member created t-shirts for us, and I'm not wearing mine because I actually use it as pajama. So, but yes, it's pretty much the power of will of one guy who could not let this go, and he just got the French community involved. And there were a lot of us this year, because Belgium is very close to France. So we just had the right timing and right people together. So it kickstart the effort. And the first step for us was to wonder, wait, before we start porting to Drupal 9, do we actually want to keep using Drupal for this? Is this the right tool, right? Because obviously we're a fan of Drupal, we use it, but is it the right tool? Because what we want to do ultimately is translation. And so a few weeks were spent benchmarking other tools, what people used in their professional translation life. And the conclusion was we need to stay on Drupal for a few reasons, and they are listed here. The sheer amount of strings that we have to serve is huge, and most tools are not meant to be used this way. Most tools allow you to store your translation in Git, and that version control is amazing, but it's not meant to be shared across projects. And that's what we do. It's a translation server. So the goal is for everybody to be able to access easily these translations. And the second part of this is it's not just a translation server, it's a collaborative tool. And so we would need to port a lot of features anyways, mainly the communication with Drupal.org. because behind the scenes, we have a lot of mechanisms currently existing that we do not want to remove, obviously, because people use it. And the translation tools like Weblate, they are amazing, great UX, very cool for teams, but that's the end of it. And it would be too much work to actually integrate these tools with the Drupal thingy. I mean, the architecture would become just like nonsensical. So we just decided to stick to Drupal 9 and port what was already there. Then the next step was the DrupalCon Prague. We were invited to the keynote. So I just realized recently that you do not have this keynote in US DrupalCons, apparently. But in Europe, it's tradition to start with the initiative leads presenting their work and updates. And so we were invited to present the new initiative to the public. So that was me representing the group. And then Nicolas and FMB and Senhertz, the three main contributors, did a session as well, which gathered a few people. It was quite a success. And we also had Buff. So yeah. Oh yeah. So that's me. And we also obviously had a contribute room, which gathered quite a few people. We recruited a lot of fresh blood that week, namely the new front-end specialists and UX designers, which were a great addition to the team because most of us were all like PHP people. And obviously one of the main usability issue with the current version of the localization translation tool is that it's not very beautiful and very well thought out. It's just old, actually. So now the team is pretty balanced between back and front and UX people, so that's pretty great. Yeah, and so here we are today, trying to get you interested from the other side of the world. So I hope that you will want to join us. And I will now leave Nicolas to talk to you about the current status of the efforts.
Thank you. So the current status is that we ported the main elements in Drupal 9. So we have a default, the basic Drupal 9 instance that is working. We have a connector that allow us to grab the information from Drupal.org, so we can read all the projects and releases that exist today on the community, meaning from the very beginning of Drupal.org. So I think it's like Drupal 4 or something. Maybe it's an even earlier version. I need to check, but it's quite an old version. We also have entities now. So in the previous version in Drupal 7, everything was stored in custom schemas. So we had custom table in the database to store everything. Now everything are entities like projects. And if you can go on the other slide, we also have releases. So as everything is basically entities now, we can work with them. We can list them easily, edit them easily, and store any kind of data we need with the different fields we can add to them. So it's a little bit complicated with migration path because we need to well, it's a work in progress, but we need to fit the old schema in the new entity schema we defined there. So it's a little bit complex, and we still have huge work before us, but at least when this is finished, we'll have a more flexible version, and we will be able to work with the different concepts easily. If you can go on the next slide, please. We also had a huge work with a quite serious benchmark on the permission system. As Marine said, the collaborative tool allow people to act with different roles. So we have translators that suggest translations, and we have team validators that that validates the translation and allows people to join the team. So we needed a very structured permission system. The original system was built on organic groups, which was quite popular on Drupal 7, but is not, well, it's ported on Drupal 8 plus, but it's really not that stable. It's not the main thing today in the community. So we benchmarked it anyway to see if it would fit with our needs and simplify the migration path, because if we could stick with it, well, maybe it would be easier to move all the teams' data. But finally, we went with the groups module, which is more popular today on the Drupal 8 plus ecosystem. And so today we implemented all the permission system with it. We still have little issues here and there, but for the main work, it's okay. So I'll be demonstrating this in a few minutes. And finally, we are also focusing on some improvements. So for now, it's very basic. This one first. Yeah, sorry. These are parts of our roadmaps. I'm just it's a sneak peek in the future we are trying to build together. Basically, this is the French, one of the French translation team tool that helps building more consistent translations. So this is a glossary. So we have analytics that helps calculating certain statistics around the number of strings in the different projects that aren't available today on localize.drupal.org. So these analytics were initially gathered through a node script that was poking the localize.drupal.org website and performing some calculation to grab every analytics we needed. So this hopefully will be integrated in Localize itself, so we don't have to calculate things through scripts anymore. And hopefully we'll be able, as everything is entities, we'll be able to maybe open REST API endpoints to allow people from the outside to request the website and gather their own analytics if they have specific requirements. So this is one of our targets. The other targets are on the glossary itself. So if you can, so on the glossary itself, this slide demonstrates one of the very cool tool that was developed by the French translation community, which is a little browser extension that allowed the translator to just hover with the mouse one of the words to be translated, and when hovering the words, the browser extension would display a little pop-in with the most validated term to use for this specific word. So it would allow every translator to be able to have consistent translation everywhere, because the most used words or the most used translation for a word would be accessible very quickly for everybody, just hovering the words and knowing what to use. So this is something we want to add to the new Localize port also. And finally, the glossary itself, with all the different guides and lists of words with the different translation that may be acceptable for a single word. So this is something we would like to develop too. It's still just a project for now. It's not yet implemented in any way, but this is something we want to add to the platform today. Finally, we also have improvements with the UX, which is on the go right now. So we have UX designers that are working on wireframes. So for example, this is the wireframes of the current interface we are working on. So the current D7 instance. And we are projecting new changes for, like, for example, here, the different filters on the lists. So these are the very first wireframes we have today, and we plan to work on other screens. Basically, we plan to have wireframes for the different critical parts of the website, but it's a long run work. So these are the very first, and hopefully we'll have many others soon. And I think it's time for the demo now. Let me share my screen and I'll show you what's under the hood and how the local Drupal, well, localized Drupal 9 instance works. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now, I think. Okay, so this is my my terminal, and I just want to show you, before showing you the website itself, I just want to show you that today we already have different comments that allow us to interact with Drupal.org. So the first one here I can show you is the L10N server. It's a Drush command, so L10N server scan, which is a command which will parse, well, which scan a specific file on Drupal.org, which is exposed at a specific URL. This file is the following one. This is a very restricted version of the origin file, because the origin file has so much lines, in fact, that you won't be able to open it on the text editor easily, because there are too many lines, and probably the memory of your computer will explode before reaching the end. But basically, this is it. So this file is called releases.tsv, and it's accessible publicly on Drupal.org. And it lists every single release of the different projects. So as you can see, it's a very simple file with just the creation date for every project, the project machine name, the version, so the release of the project, and finally the human readable project name. So this is a file that is exposed, and this command here gonna grab this file, get all the different releases, and inject them on my local instance, for example. So here it will be quite quick, because I've already performed such a scan prior this session to be able to demonstrate the website. But normally you would have a very long scan of the different projects, and it would take quite a long time. The other command I can show you now is the parsing command. So you can use this command without any arguments, like, for example, directly L10N_server parse, and this would parse all the project and all the releases available for Drupal. If you try to install a local instance of localized, don't do that now, or otherwise you won't see your computer end this process soon enough to to work on it. So we recommend only for now, for the work purpose, we only recommend to parse certain, well, for example, a single release of Drupal 9, for example, which already got some pretty huge volume of strings to import. So here I'm trying to parse the 9.4.1 release. And the parsing process is quite quick too, but you'll see the analytics after the parsing is done. There are quite a few strings that are processed. We still have errors on some of them. Well, we will need to work on the exact cause of these errors, but for now we are focusing on the data we already have without any errors, so we can work on the interfaces and the different features that are to be ported. It's taking quite a while. Sorry for the little patience.
I think 2 of us with Zoom plus that's a lot for your bandwidth, maybe.
Okay, so it worked. As you can see, we imported quite a few files and some strings too through our very own connectors to Drupal.org. Know that you can basically create your own connector if you want to install a localized instance somewhere on a custom server with your own connectors dealing with your own files. You can do it. We provide the default connector and it's working, but you can have others to parse other things if you want. But as I said, we have some errors for now. It's not the point right now, but it's there's room for improvement. And now finally, for the demonstration, I have a local instance here installed. The home page is quite empty for now, so basically it would list here all the languages you would have installed on your local website. So this is something you still need to configure manually. So install all the languages you want to work with locally, and configure a group for all of these languages, like a translation team. One group is a translation team. So language and translation team you have to create manually, and then you can work as you want with your local instance. In the future, we hope to work on the migration of those elements from the original localized infrastructure. But for now, we are only focusing on the features themselves, and the migration will come soon enough. So as you can see, we have an interface that is quite similar to the one we have on Localize right now. So with the community team, you can select your translation team in the right column. You've already got some quick statistics that are generated right away from the different entities you've got on your local instance. So for example, here, you see that I've already parsed 2 releases, and there are still a few that I could parse if I wanted. I have scanned quite a few files, quite a few strings, and I've got analytics on my local instance that are still working, that are already working, and in the future we hope to improve this, as I said earlier. Now let me just show you an example of the translation team. So basically here we have this is a group, so you can edit it as you want and add a little welcome message like you would, and basically it's just an entity you can fill in like you would with other kind of entities. So you can structure your homepage, your translation team word homepage like you would, and you can start to work. So to work, you've got to deal with strings, and those strings are based on our entities that are present here. So as I said, we've got the different projects that are available. right now I've already installed I've already scanned and parsed the Drupal core project. So here you can have small analytics with the different strings that are available and untranslated. So as my local instance is quite empty, I don't have many things. So obviously, most of the content is untranslated on my local instance. But you can see that I've already made some suggestion for demo purpose. So all the analytics are already pretty good, basically. And we also have the releases, which is quite a few more data with many information here. Basically, here you'll find a different version of a project. So if I scroll a little bit down here, you'll see the two different releases I've already parsed with my drush command. And here you can find the different analytics for these specific releases, the time at which I've imported it, and you can also find the direct link on the Drupal.org server to download this specific version. So we already grab all the data from Drupal.org that are important to us. So as I said, from my translation team interface, I can go to the translate menu, and there I'll find, so well, it's still a work in progress. We still have work to do on the different on the UI itself, but for now we are focusing on the feature, the functionality. So basically the whole list and exposed form is working, and we find our translation suggestion system, which is already working. So for all the translation, we can find the different strings that are listed as we already list them in the current localized instance. So you can navigate through the different pages if you want to filter with some specific keywords. You can do it, and it will perform the filtering as it's intended. And you already can check the differences between the suggestions that are done from the translation teams. As a validator, you can say, okay, which is the best version. So you can see that when I hover with my mouse, I can see the differences, the different words that are moving between the translation. And I can say, okay, this is the one I want to keep. And then I just have to save the changes. And this is now this is not yet fully implemented, but this would be the translation to be kept. So it's quite okay, and it's still it's really working. So you can edit your translation, you can delete them too. Well, deletion is not working yet. So this is our main focus for now, making this all web form, this form, the translation suggestion form, working. There are quite some work still there. And once we finish with that, we can move forward on our roadmap. And I give you my screen back, Marine, for the rest of the slides, please. Oh, okay, sorry. Here we go. So the roadmap. Yeah, no problem. So for now, we're still in the first phase, which is subdivided in 5 different phases that we are trying to work on at the same time, basically. So the first phase is to port the current module, migrate the data, and get a workable front end. This is something we are currently working on globally. then make it neat, so refactor, use a more modern approach. This is not in the scope right now. We still have many different features to work on. Make it pretty. This is what we're working on with the wireframes. Make it reliable, so the tests, and make it live. So this is not currently in the scope at all. It's if we can find more volunteers to help us on different porting efforts we are on, maybe this will come sooner. But right now, it's a distant future.
Just for the record, it was supposed to be step 1, step 2, but we ended up working on several things parallel, which was not the initial plan, but that's why it's kind of complicated. But since we found some good feedback and UX designers, obviously it makes sense to work on some improvement as well as the general port and migration of data. But yeah, it was supposed to be a specific order, and then everybody started working on what was more interesting to them. But the live part is always the last. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, basically we are working on the three first elements. As we are already implementing modern approaches for the entities and the group module, but there's still work with the different REST API and refactoring in general. And there's a second phase after this, which is implementing even more improvement, as we said earlier. But this is very distant future, and there's still a lot of work. And we have very interesting suggestion from different translation communities, like, for example, Balu, that we met in the DrupalCon, who is a very active member of the Localize, of the translation community in Drupal in general. So I think that's it. We are meeting. We have a weekly meeting on every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central European time. This is a link to join us. We are on a Jitsi instance, public instance. Feel free to hop in anytime. We regularly welcome newcomers. So. Well, feel free.
We have work for you.
Yeah, we have work for you. All right. And thank you for for this opportunity to speak about our initiative. If you have any question, we'd be happy to answer it if we can. The little QR code is a little feedback form we already posted on the DrupalCon sessions. So we are still very curious to have your feedback on the current tool and what you would want to see improved, so we can add more things to our roadmap, which is not even enough yet. And thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. That was great. That was wonderful. And so I'm curious, when you have your meetings, do you meet in English or what language? Yeah.
Yeah, Gabor join us regularly, so we are not only French speakers. So when we are only French speakers, we talk in French, obviously. But whenever anybody join us, we switch to English right away.
It must be so nice to be bilingual. It's true what you were saying in the beginning, though, Mani, about like I think you're right. I think European web developers do deal with this more, because I've worked on a lot of sites that were only in English, and I bet you guys don't do that a lot, where you work on sites that are just in French.
Yes, it really just depends on the type of website. Obviously, if you're working for the French government information website, it will be most of the time only in French. But we do work, I think Drupal is used for a lot of institutions like UNESCO or nonprofits, international nonprofits, UNO. And so obviously they offer a lot of languages, even though it's not e-commerce. So just depends on what type of websites you work on.
Mhm.
Universities tend to have several languages as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on a museum site now, and interestingly, the languages they have are very interesting. Part of the site is translated into Hawaiian. Really, really interesting. Yeah. So that just kind of blew my mind. And then they're also doing Filipino, and then I think French and German and Spanish, but I was a little surprised by the Hawaiian, but it's because they have in their collection, they've collected a lot of objects and information about Polynesian culture. So that's why.
That would be very interesting for us to have feedback from, less traditional languages, like, for example, Arabic or Chinese, or, languages that don't necessarily go left to right, because we need to test the UI and UX with these type of languages that actually read from left to right, for example, from right to left, sorry. So that's why we're trying to raise awareness, because even for us, being bilingual or trilingual doesn't mean anything, because if we all speak Romance languages, then we don't test these cases, right? Even for us, like with accents, obviously in French we do have a lot of accents, so that's okay, I guess. But for this specific display, how do we make sure that people can still read the UI properly if it's language that none of us speak? So we can't really make sure that it displays properly. So if you know anybody who's in a translation team or who works with Arabic, would be a good place to start, I think. Do feel free to talk to them about this initiative, and we need their feedback.
Yeah, and as Ralph just said in the chat, one of the biggest challenge we have is also the management of the plural forms. So this is a huge stuff to deal with, and actually we would like, well, we would like to have more feedbacks about this, because I think the user experience could be quite improved around these notions too. So feel free to opt in on this forum and suggest anything that you think could be of any improvement for the platform, and we'd be happy to work on it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I really wish I had an offer on this kind of topic, but unfortunately I work mostly in the US, but I have worked on some projects that are like some African country projects where we were doing French and English and Arabic. But that was way back when it was D6. And I don't speak multiple languages. I only speak English. So, and that not very well, probably. So, but I think it's really an important thing for our community to do a good job with this. And I'm really grateful for you folks and all the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do not hesitate to share the link to other people. Maybe if you don't speak other languages or don't feel legitimate to share any incentive, any feedback, do not hesitate to just share the link, and other people probably will have things to say.
Yeah, I think, have you reached out to a lot of the multinational NGO type operations? Talk to them about this, because
not yet. We've been focused on actually making progress, so we have things to show. And
right.
It was a small group of people, but some of them were really like pushing through, working a lot every week. And so it just happened, and we're catching up with the communication part of it. But I'm sure we can do better, that's for sure. But you know, even you speaking English, there's one thing that you can do that many people don't know about, and it's to raise awareness about custom strings. If you maintain a Drupal module or contribute to the Drupal core, every time you see a string, make sure it's wrapped with a T function and that it has a context, because then when we translate it, we know, is it view with a capital V as the module name that we will not translate, we will just call it view, or is it view the verb and then like show me this, so view, and then we will need to translate it with a different verbal form, whether for us it's in infinitive or like a different conjugation of a verb. So that's a lot of developers don't know that and don't use them. And then for the translations team, it's really hard to like open a PR to change text. Most maintainers will be pissed at this, but then the overall quality of the English text is very important for us. So that's, you know, something that you can do, and it's very early on, but then for us, it makes the whole work easier.
Yeah. So all the focus right now obviously is in core, but is the goal to have all contributed
Oh,
projects?
they are. Just for the demo, Nicolas did not sync with every project because it's too long.
right.
But on Drupal.org, the CSV file he was talking about is already gathering every release of every project since Drupal 4. So that's why it's a lot of data. All the strings, if tomorrow you want to still install Drupal 6 again, then you will have all the localized data available. So that's a lot of strings. And that's why every time a string changes in English, that's a new translation. But the other one is not removed. It's still there available because you may install the older version. So when you use the translation tools, it's for every project.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Guys, is it okay to ask some questions too? Yeah. First one, where can I get one of that cool T-shirts you were in Prague?
And how much are you willing to pay for that?
Put it to Drupal swag, please. Put it there. We will buy it.
Okay. I think we can talk about this with Dan, maybe, I guess.
Great idea.
So that was the first question. The second question is, which kind or type of people do you need to get progress done for the initiative?
Any kind, obviously, really any kind. The problem right now is that the people that are working on the different part of the project are not as available as they were a few months ago. So basically, we are trying to get things done, but we don't have many people, and those many people don't have many time. So bring on any kind of people, really, devs, UX designers, even people that would help bringing feedbacks and management or around these feedbacks to improve our wireframes and projection of the software. Well, really any kind of people.
Yeah, and to emphasize that, we also need people who will just not know anything about the project and help us write good documentation, because it's not very easy to understand at first that first you need to request access to a team for a specific language, and then you will have a role that only allows you to suggest translation. And then when you're vetted by the translation team, you can get a role that will allow you to approve translations. You know, it's all these steps are not explained at all currently on the website, and we want people to have a good experience when they arrive, understand what they can do, how they can contribute. So even that, like someone who doesn't know how it works, but we will be able to put it into words, and make sure, like, tell us, wait, how does it work? Because it's not written, you know. So that's, even if you have like 1 hour a week, it's amazing for us, because we have issues. So we know what needs to be done. For example, there's an issue with the controller, and someone from our like a colleague of Nicolas joined like this week, and he could start working on it right away. As a PHP developer, he could just dive in. So yeah.
Thank you.
And what did the community do before Drupal 7 for this, or did we?
You mean, did we add this tool before Drupal 7?
Yeah, was there like a Drupal 6 server for?
I think so, yes. I'm not sure exactly. I think Localize, well, I'm part of the community for quite a long time now, and I remember my very first DrupalCon, which was DrupalCon Szeged in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about this time that Localize was published. And I think by then we were like between Drupal 5 and Drupal 6. So I guess it was something around Drupal 5 and Drupal 6 for the very first instance, but I guess it's Gabor that would be able to answer that. I'm not really sure.
Oh,
Huh.
oh. Joaquin says it was started in 2005.
Yeah, we're
Huh.
just not sure if it was the same architecture than the one we're migrating now,
Mhm,
obviously,
mhm.
because I think they added
Probably not,
feature
yeah.
over time as well. So, and just for the t-shirt, you know, you might actually ask your
Send Urs, you mean?
compatriot, yeah, because it's
Yeah, okay.
he made them for Prague.
Let me call. No, it's in the night. I don't call him
Yeah.
later.
No, but
Might be quite
designed them
pissed.
all. And then he was able to have t-shirts made, because I wanted to have t-shirt made, and no one could do them on such short notice. So Nicolas handmade some badges that you saw in a picture, just to show you. And then we arrived in Prague, and Sandhurst had done the t-shirts, so pretty amazing.
Okay.
So it was to be visible there in the contribute room, and so people would know we were part of the team. So yeah, but I'm sure we can. I mean, you open sourced the logo, I guess. So
Yeah, it's okay. But maybe we can talk with Dan about this so that it's on Drupal Swag. So maybe people can buy them and bring back to the community too. So I'm okay with that. We'll see if we can do this and make it happen.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much. And this was awfully nice of you guys to come this late, your time. And I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the recording. We can stay and talk for a moment. I can't tell if it stopped. Did it say it stopped, anybody? Or it's weird. I'm clicking on it, nothing's happening. There we go. There it stopped.